Just a quick note, as with all my season reviews, there'll be spoilers from here on out. That's a spoiler warning. Spoilers. I'm gonna spoil everything.
Put the bunny back in the box.
And so we come to the end of another season of Arrow, a show that has more ups and downs than the world's most used yo-yo. Season 5 was the best the show had been since its second year, so hopes were high for Season 6. Could the upward trend continue? Will Arrow finally stabilise and become consistently good? No, not quite, no. As I said, Season 5 was awesome. It had the best finale that the Arrowverse has ever seen, and it just needed to keep that momentum up into the new season. Right off the bat, though, it showed that wasn't going to happen. If you recall, Year 5 ended with Lianu exploding and the fates of almost every main character other than Oliver being up in the air. People speculated over who would return, and of course, everybody did. At least from the regular cast. The only death was Oliver's ex, which was as predictable a thing to happen as you can get. The only serious casualty was Thea, who remained in a coma for the first few episodes, but seeing as she had a foot out of the door for a while by this point, that just seemed like an easy way to lessen her episode count before she left than it did a story decision. Diggle had a lasting injury, sure, but a bit of tech later and he's all fixed up, so that was largely pointless. Basically, a lot of the goodwill that had been set up went out the window. That's not to say it was a complete waste. Like Oliver found himself thrust into fatherhood, for example, but it immediately made that incredible cliffhanger one that, I don't know, it more seemed like it was just there for the sake of it. Adding to the frustration this year, and by the way, I'm getting all the bad stuff for this season out of the way first. I will come to the good in a bit. I did actually enjoy bits of this season. But yeah, adding to the frustrations was a lot of the characters and the way they interacted with each other. Specifically, the separation of Team Arrow and the consistent fighting that came about as a result. Let's take a look for a moment at the catalyst for everything falling apart. Someone from Team Arrow may have agreed to take the stand in court and testify that Oliver is the Green Arrow. Oliver, Diggle and Felicity track the new recruits and spy on them in the hope of finding out who it is. The newbies find out and are royally pissed by the whole thing, and shortly afterwards they leave to start their new team, and they continually bemoan the actions of their former colleagues. But as it turns out, Renee did agree to betray Oliver. And let's not forget that in the previous season, Evelyn also betrayed the team. So out of the 5 new members they've had at one point or another, 2 of them, nearly half, have been untrustworthy. So why do Curtis and Dinah have such a problem? Yeah, it hurts not to be trusted, but it's hardly OG Team Arrow's fault that they aren't fully yet. It's Evelyn's, and it's Renee's. As for Renee, despite liking him at certain points, he's insufferable for a lot of this season. He went against Oliver. Yes, he had his reasons and they were valid, yet he still did it. So who the bloody hell does he think he is, whining and slating Oliver and everyone? He did this. It's his fault. But that's hardly acknowledged by Dinah and Curtis. The whole division story crumbles as a result. We're meant to feel torn Civil War style between these two teams, but the new one didn't have a chance. All 3 characters became so unlikable at times as a result of being part of a plot that had no balance. Honestly, this annoyed me so much that I was happy when Oliver gave Renee a beating. I actually felt bad for Oliver this season. At one point, the only person he had left in his corner was new wife Felicity. Diggle too had turned on him, and that's another aspect of all this that didn't sit right with me. The conflict between them and all of Diggle's concerns seemed to come out of nowhere. The fight between the two was incredible to watch, but there needed to be more time to build this up. More time devoted to simmering tension between them. As it stands, and despite the points that Diggle brings up, it seemed more like he was sulking that he couldn't be the Green Arrow anymore. Diggle's better than that, and I know there was more to it, but the pacing of this was so off that it was hard for all of his frustrations to resonate with me. I mentioned Thea earlier, and honestly, she should have left the show at the end of Season 4. What purpose did she serve this year? Or last year, really? She was a background player that served Quentin's story, but had nothing to do for herself until the episode before she left. It's a shame, as I love Willa Holland, and I do miss Thea, but she wanted to leave, and instead was talked around into coming back for reduced episodes. I've no idea why, though. She was largely pointless. I did enjoy her last episode, but that could easily have taken place 2 years ago. Then there's Laurel, who, whilst vastly improved by the time the season drew to a close, spent so much of the time swaying from good to evil that she became a chore. There was a good story here, somewhere, and Katie Cassidy did the best she could with it, but it was all so on the nose. I didn't feel as though there was an internal struggle going on with her. She seemed to flip between sides at a whim, and most of the time as a result she was more frustrating than she was engaging. She ended the season on a good note that had me interested in what she'll bring to season 7, but they have to make better use of her than they have done here. On to the villain then, and this sums up the season nicely. It got better as it went on. Michael Emerson was brilliant as Caden James, performance-wise. I always loved Michael Emerson. But the character himself was a bit of a strange one. His motivation, revenge on Oliver for a murder he didn't commit, was a bit contrived and not overly original. Once that reveal came about, it took a lot of the menace away from him, as he was merely a pawn in somebody else's game. As a huge Emerson fan, I can't help but feel a little let down by how he was used here. Once he was out of the way, though, it was time for Ricardo Diaz to take centre stage, and he was a mixed bag who once again improved as the season continued. Kirk Acevedo was consistently great. There was a real menace to Diaz that came more from the performance than the writing, but it wasn't until he actually gained power that he truly felt like a memorable villain. A villain makes or breaks a season a lot of the time on Arrow, although even Damien Dark couldn't help season 4. Slade Wilson, who had a seemingly permanent goodbye here, was a large part of why season 2 is so beloved, and same with Adrian Chase in season 5, so it's no coincidence that the season as a whole got better around the same time Diaz did. This guy had one simple goal: power. There was nothing more than that, really. He wanted to rule Star City and exert his dominance, and I liked that there wasn't more to it. It was simple and effective, and his rule over so many people, including the police, made sure that he really did feel like a threat in a way that was different to how things had been played out before. I also like that he survived the season. It's quite nice to have a threat to have the chance of returning, and given the tease we got for the villains next season, Diaz could continue to be interesting going forward. My favourite part of the season, though, was Oliver's double life beginning to crumble. The FBI are onto him and led by Agent Watson, and they're intent on bringing him to justice for being the Green Arrow. This isn't the first time that Oliver's been under the spotlight, but it's certainly the most significant. He had this hanging over his head all season long, and it was interesting watching him trying to dodge it. First it was Diggle taking over the Arrow mantle, yet Oliver found he missed it and quickly reclaimed it. It was actually a nice way of seeing how Oliver views what he does, a rare chance to get in his head over something that has been the central concept of the show since it began. The court scenes were well done, albeit glossed over too quickly, and it was brilliant seeing Tommy Merlin back, even if it did turn out to only be human target. But the most interesting part of all this was how it ended. Not with Oliver getting away with it, not with, as I thought was going to happen, Agent Watson letting him walk, but with Oliver being sent to a Supermax prison. Not only that, but he revealed to the world that he is the Vigilante, which is as big a game changer as we've seen, I think, on any of these shows. It's a bold move, but I love it. When Oliver gets out, and we know he'll be out in time for the next Batwoman and Gotham included crossover, he'll have to deal with everyone knowing who he really is. I really, really hope that Season 7 doesn't undo this. If it does, it'll be the worst thing the show's done yet, including nuking thousands of people and not really caring. Arrow needs this change. It needs to reinvent himself, and this is the best way I can think to do it. Really, everything about this finale worked for me. I loved seeing Oliver reconcile with everyone and saying his goodbyes, and I understand why he didn't tell Felicity. It's one of the few keeping a secret from someone's stories that I can get behind. Normally, they just wind me up, they just dump for the sake of it. She would have talked him out of giving himself up, but he needed to do it to stop Diaz and to save others. That makes sense to me. As for Felicity, she's back to being a good character again for the most part. Although, saying that, interrupting Barry and Iris' wedding to propose to Oliver is the biggest dick move she's made yet, including nuking thousands of people and not really caring. But after how much I hated her in seasons 3 and 4, she's settled down again. She's almost back to being that fun character I really cared about in the first 2 seasons, and I really hope the writers keep her in that spot. Then there's Quentin Lance, who met an untimely demise with his real and fake daughters nearby. I like Quentin, I do, but I had started to think he'd run his course last year, so this really is probably time for him to go. His story this season, trying to prove that the doppelganger of his dead daughter can be good, was fine, I guess, but much like the character of Laurel, there was too much back and forth. Quentin isn't dumb. He knows this isn't his Laurel, so it felt a bit odd that it was only really Dinah who called him out on it. Others did, every now and then, but there should have been more people on Quentin at this, more people saying, dude, not your daughter, this is a killer. Still, this is a good farewell for him. His death finally pushed Laurel to the good side of the Force, and it was nice to see him go out almost content. His last scene with Oliver was incredible, by the way, and easily the best work I've seen Stephen Amell do. To touch on a few other things, I liked Dinah this year when she wasn't actively hating Oliver and everyone. The Vigilante reveal was one of the worst I've seen. That's who they chose, they built it up for him. But his death gave her depth, and it's that depth that really changed her. It was nice to see her evolve. She ended the year without trying to kill Laurel again, which she tried to do multiple times, and that was great to see. Things should be interesting between them in Season 7. And as for William, I didn't hate him. That surprised me. I was worried about how a child would fit into this show, but they were lucky to get an actor who doesn't come across as annoying. If anything, he helps Oliver and Felicity grow as people while also having some decent moments for himself. It was a smart move to limit his appearances, really, as it kept the family dramas from dominating too much. I'm happy to see more William in Season 7. I just wish that 6 had come out swinging. The last few episodes were a vast improvement of what had come before, but it was too little too late to save it as a whole. So much didn't work, so much potential was wasted, and no solid ending could do anything to rectify that. The damage was done before the quality got better. There was too much going around in circles, too much bickering over stupid things, and not enough transparency and time to build up the villain. I'm going to give Season 6 of Arrow a 6 out of 10, and that is a coincidence, by the way, with the number. I do have high hopes for Season 7. 2 cast members who have become dead weight are gone, the status quo's changed, Roy's coming back, and there's a new showrunner. If anything can be taken from this season, it's that it needs a shot in the arm, and these changes could be just what it needs. We'll find out in October. My Legends of Tomorrow Season 3 review's been up for a while now, so feel free to take a look at that. I'll do one of these for both The Flash and Supergirl as well, and just a quick sneak peek, one of those shows I'm really going to struggle to say anything positive about. Once Supergirl's over, I plan to do a ranking of the Flower Girl of Tomorrow shows, which is a term only I use, by the way. Sadly, a season from this year will be very close to the bottom. But, what did you think of Arrow Season 6? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, a like would help me out. Just hit the thumbs up button thing. Feel free to subscribe as well, and you can also follow me on Twitter at JoePJulians. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you on the next video.